Welcome to the Steeped in Sport Tea Time Chat about gut performance connection for athletes. Let's see here. Let's start. I'll do a quick introduction. My name is Dr. Sarah, and I am a powerlifting athlete, and I've done various different strength sports in the past, and I also grew up competitively swimming. So I have quite a bit of experience from the athlete side of things, and I also have quite a bit of experience with helping athletes as well. I am a licensed acupuncturist and a Chinese medicine practitioner and a registered massage therapist. So anywhere ranging from soft tissue injuries to internal health, I love working with athletes. So this is definitely in my wheelhouse, and I want to share this information with you guys today. So let's get into why this topic matters. Athletes, because they spend so much time training, and there's quite a bit of taxation on the nervous system and the musculoskeletal system, with having to repair and regenerate all the time, pretty much, unless you're in off season and just taking a full rest. Digestion is going to be impacted. In Chinese medicine, your spleen is more than just the Western medicine definition, which is in Western medicine, it's seen as kind of like a giant lymph node for the most part. Whereas in Chinese medicine, it is a critical piece of your digestive system. It is also what they say dominates the four limbs, and it's a critical player in recovery for muscle tissue, circulation, that kind of thing. So it also matters because when your digestion is not working properly, the ability for your body to absorb nutrients dramatically decreases. So if your spleen is not functioning properly in Chinese medicine, spleen and stomach together, they are responsible for the transportation and transformation of nutrients from your food to distribute around your body and to feed your body, really. So with the decreased absorption and nutrients from your food, that definitely has a big impact on your recovery. And with the decreased recovery from training, sorry, my upstairs neighbors are moving some things around. Yes. Yeah. So with decreased recovery from training, obviously all athletes know that when you are struggling to recover, you're struggling to perform at training sessions, and obviously you're going to struggle to perform in competition. So that's why this really matters, is to, get your digestion optimized, not just like functioning well, but like working really well for you. So let's talk about some common ways that digestive issues impact athletes. Constipation is one that I see quite often. Another one is diarrhea, the two polar opposite ends of the spectrum. Food sensitivities is another one. And then cramping, so stomach cramping. Those are the main four symptoms that I work with athletes on. So how do each of these symptoms impact our performance in a negative way? So let's take a closer look at constipation. Constipation, really, if you think about how our bowels are designed, they're designed to eliminate byproducts and waste from our body. So when you are retaining that waste, you are increasing the toxicity on your system. You're also, because of that, you're putting a strain on your entire detoxification system. So it's not just like, okay, we've got a little bit of increased toxicity in the large intestine because things are backed up. Now we're looking at the possibility that your liver might be needing to work overtime, your spleen might be needing to work overtime to accommodate for the higher toxicity levels in the system as a whole. With this, you're also going to have an increased level of heat. So lots of people who are constipated feel backed up, and that pressure can also cause you to feel quite hot. So you'll find that you're overheating during practice or in competition a lot easier. Oftentimes, the increased level of heat in the body will decrease the level of water that is available to the body. So obviously we all know how important hydration is as athletes, and when you have decreased availability of water to your muscles and to your organs and to your brain, that's going to have a really negative impact on your performance for sure. You're also going to have an increased level of muscle cramping with constipation. That heat and then decreased water distribution can definitely cause more muscle cramping. You may experience brain fog, heavy and decreased mobility in your limbs. And when you're actually having a bowel movement, finally, you can be straining and possibly causing the increasing your risk, at least, of establishing hemorrhoids, which are no fun. So let's also talk about diarrhea. How does diarrhea impact your performance? It is definitely going to cause some dehydration and some electrolyte imbalances, which we all know are not going to be beneficial for athletes whatsoever. It can increase your stress. When you are experiencing frequent diarrhea, you are always on the lookout for where the closest restroom is, and that can be very stressful for anybody, but especially for athletes, especially if you're getting called up to the platform or you're on a shift on the field or on the court, getting subbed out and leaving mid shift, or needing to try and hold in diarrhea while you're performing a lift on a platform at a competition is just very, very stressful. Diarrhea can also, because you're dehydrated and your electrolytes can be out of whack, it can contribute to fatigue, which is not great when you're trying to perform at practices or competition. It can decrease your stamina, and sometimes it can also cause sleep disturbances, which will just kind of spiral all downward if you're not sleeping properly, you're not recovering properly, and so on and so forth. Okay, let's talk about food sensitivities. So, how do food sensitivities negatively impact performance? With food sensitivities, you're going to have limited food options, especially while traveling for competition. And that can be stressful, trying to figure out when you're not the one that's cooking your own food. Like, okay, you're checking labels, you're trying to make sure that when you're ordering from a restaurant, there's no hidden ingredients in the food that you're eating, and you're always on the lookout for flare-ups. So that can be stressful. Flare-ups can cause diarrhea, nausea, rashes, and all of those things will impact your performance and how comfortable you are while you're training or competing. And last but not least, cramping. So cramping and performance is actually pretty straightforward. If you have ever experienced cramping during training or a competition, you know that that's like sharp pains through your stomach. It's going to decrease the amount of movement that you have available through your torso. So let's say, you're a football player and you need to be able to rotate and move quickly. Having sharp pains in your stomach is going to make that more challenging. And when you have any kind of sharp pain in the body, just like an injury, let's say like a knee injury or shoulder injury, it's going to preoccupy a little bit of your headspace, and that is going to diminish your performance for sure. Yeah. Okay, so let's move on to how proper digestion contributes to better performance. So, with proper nutrition and proper gut health overall, so I'm going to say, based on Chinese medicine, what that means to me is proper spleen and stomach function. You're going to have better nutrient absorption from the food that you're eating, which is going to cause an increase in energy, which will also cause increase in recovery, which means that you can have better training quality and quantity. So you can train more often, and the quality of your training is going to improve. And because of that, you will obviously be able to improve at your sport dramatically. So that's always really important, and one of the huge benefits of having a healthy spleen and stomach. You're also going to notice that with proper spleen and stomach function, there's increased brain function. That means increased clarity, better decision making when it comes to game times, better reaction time, which is also very, very important for pretty much most sports, and your ability to focus is going to improve. You're also going to notice, especially for female athletes, you'll notice that you have much more balanced hormones. So with each menstrual cycle, You'll notice that you have improved and regulated bleeding. So if you are the type of person who has heavy periods, you'll notice that that will regulate to being less heavy. If you are the type of athlete who has what's called amenorrhea, so either no period or very, very light periods, you may notice that that will regulate to a healthier level of a little bit more flow. You'll also have decreased cramping prior to or during your period, and decreased bloating as well, and a calmer emotional state. Digestion and your menstrual cycle are very much linked in a lot of different ways in Chinese medicine. And so increasing the function of your digestive system will only help you have smoother, better periods. And that's always great for all of us girls. With this, you'll also notice a decrease in inflammation. So that obviously is going to improve your recovery times from training and competition. And it's also going to dramatically decrease your risk of injury, which we all need to be mindful of when we're doing athletics. You'll also notice that with proper spleen and stomach function, there's going to be less peaks and valleys in your energy, which is super important in so many different ways, but especially if you're trying to get consistency with your training, having peaks and valleys in your energy is annoying, number one, but number two, it's really counterproductive in what you're trying to achieve with having good training sessions on a regular basis. So let's talk about some quick tips to remedy these specific issues. So for constipation with my patients, the very first question I'm going to ask is, how much water are you drinking? Are you staying hydrated enough for your body and your activity level? Obviously, your water intake is going to help hydrate your colon. And when your colon is properly hydrated, that's going to provide enough moisture to like move that stool through the system. So water is the first thing I always ask. Also, like we talked about before, with constipation, there's increased heat in the body. And so that also is an indication sometimes that dehydration is a part of the problem. So if you're drinking enough water, you won't have as much heat in the system. The heat in the system can dry out the stool and not lubricate the large intestine very well. So just staying hydrated is a really easy, quick fix if that's actually part of the problem. The other thing is having probiotics. So oftentimes with constipation, we'll find that there's not the proper bacteria in the gut that will help to move things along. So probiotics is another thing that we start with in my practice as far as constipation is concerned for athletes. As far as diarrhea, electrolytes is a big one. So if you're experiencing diarrhea as an athlete, you are going to be going through your electrolytes pretty quickly. So supplementation is an important piece of that puzzle for you until you can get your body to a place where you're having less bowel movements and losing less water. The other thing that makes a huge impact is decreasing the amount of raw and cold foods and drinks. So this one is to be honest, it's a weird one for people to grasp in Western society and in athletics for sure, because we get hot and sweaty and we want cold, icy drinks that makes us cool off better, which is fine. But oftentimes athletes will drink those cold, icy drinks outside of their athletics. So just at home while they're resting. And they'll also eat cold raw foods, so salads and raw vegetables and things like that, yogurts, cold yogurts. And none of these things are unhealthy. It's just that if you are experiencing diarrhea in Chinese medicine, these things will tax the spleen even further than what you're already doing with your sport and training. So just momentarily decreasing the amount of raw foods and cold foods will help to nourish your spleen in a different way and will help to get you back on track so that diarrhea isn't a problem. So once you've healed and diarrhea isn't as much of an issue for you, then reintroducing some cold foods and drinks is definitely a possibility. But for a momentary pause on that, it would be really important. So cold raw foods, I usually get the most questions about that. So if you have questions please put them in the comments. I'm happy to explain this a little bit further if that short explanation wasn't quite enough. Okay, as far as food sensitivities, one of the things that I recommend for athletes is to start a food journal. So food journaling is a bit of a pain sometimes because you have to remember to do it. You got to carry it around with you. There are some wonderful apps out there that make it very easy. And I can put a link to some of those in the description of the video. The reason that you want to start a food journal is really to identify and narrow down which foods are causing you problems. So whether that might be the cold raw foods like salads or yogurts or raw vegetables or the Slurpee or slushy. I'm not sure. I'm from up here in Canada. We call them Slurpees. So that would help you to determine, okay, I've eaten these things and now I've noticed that I have these issues arising shortly thereafter. So that can help you figure out what the culprits might be. And then the other thing for food sensitivities is really just keeping it simple. So if you're eating easy foods that are coming from packages, really cutting back on that and bringing yourself to a whole food situation with your nutrition is important. You're going to be decreasing the amount of additives and what's the word I'm looking for? Decreasing the amount of additives and chemicals, thank you, in your food if you're just going back to whole foods. So sometimes people think that whole foods mean like organic. So if you're eating something from a package that says organic, dried mangoes, that is okay. However, what I mean by whole foods is unprocessed. So if it is looking really similar to what it did when it was, out in the wild, so like a fresh mango would be your better solution rather than mango slices, which would obviously have some preservatives in them to keep them fresh in that bag for quite so long. Same thing with meats. So, if you're having animal proteins, making sure that they look like they would, once they're butchered, not processed. If you're having more grain or non-animal proteins, same thing, making sure that the amount of processing that is going into that food is as minimal as possible. That would be another great place to look for food sensitivities. A lot of the time, those food sensitivities will be coming from the additives and the chemicals that are in the foods and because of how they're processed. And lastly, cramping. With this one, if you're experiencing cramping during training and competition quite frequently, you could have a problem with your food timing. So that means our bodies are designed to digest when we're resting. So you've heard like rest and digest. And that's pretty critical. As an athlete, sometimes you can't time your food very well. Like, let's say you finish work or school and you've got a quick half hour before practice starts. That tiny window doesn't always give you enough time to digest the food that you're eating. So that's in combination with my second point. If the food that you're eating is maybe a little too heavy for that time period. So what I would suggest is you take a look at when you're eating in relation to your practices or competitions, and making sure that you're not eating too many heavy, dense, hard to digest foods during that time period. So keeping it light, light grains, simple carbohydrates, fruits, things like that will be better for you rather than having like a full sandwich, let's say, or a bigger meal of like, chicken and rice, something like that. Maybe wait until post-practice or post-competition day is over, and that will help to decrease the level of stomach cramping that you're experiencing. And so that about wraps it up for this quick little tea and chat. If you have any comments or questions, please leave them below. I'm happy to revisit this and answer any questions that you might have. If you're interested in more information, please connect with me on my website, riptipy.com, where I have a comprehensive healing course for athletes who suffer from IBS. And I also have an ebook that explains Chinese medicine, 5-element theory for diet therapy for athletes specifically. So I've got those two things out there right now. And if you have any other questions or requests for information, please let me know. I'm happy to fill in any blanks that you might have. Until next time, I hope you have a great day.